let's continue with where we left off. So what we were doing is to say what are all the possible sensors that's available, and this is of not an exhaustive list, right? So there are many more such sensors which take some physical parameter and then give you some kind of an electrical output. Okay. Now among the possible electrical outputs, we have these kinds of signals that come out of a sensor, right? So now the question is, what sensors give you these signals? Okay, let's pick one of these. Current. Which sensors gives you a current at the output?
Temperature sensors like 85 millivolts.
That gives you a current. Yeah, thermocouples, for example.
Voltage.
Yeah, thermocouples give a voltage. Among these, what do photodiodes give? They give a current at the output, right? So for example, photodiodes give you a current at the output, right? Let's pick one example each. Resistance.
RTD.
Huh?
LDR.
Yeah, LDR changes with the amount of light incident on it. Same thing with a lot of these sensors. Okay, gas sensors or biosensors are usually some kind of a resistive film whose resistance changes with exposure to the gas or exposure to that biochemical, or that could be exposure to light, depending upon, like glucose oxidase could be a resistance change measurement, right? So these are usually some biosensors. Let's say for example like glucose sensors, right, or LDRs, right?
Simple temperature sensor RTD.
Yeah, temperature sensors also, the resistance changes with temperature. Anything for capacitance? Touch sensors, yes. Most of our cell phones are just capacitive array, right? So based on wherever you touch, the capacitance between electrodes changes, and you use that change to measure the location of where the touch has happened. Okay, and then frequency as the output, as I said, is a combination of these. Okay, usually there is no sensor which directly gives you a frequency change except maybe some resonance, but still even that is connected to some capacitance change. Inductance, yeah, position sensors like LVDTs. This is an inductance change due to location of the magnetic core. Okay, but this voltage output, as such, no sensor will directly. pH sensors, is it the case it gives?
Sensor gives you exactly plus minus 414 millivolts, 0 to 4 voltage.
pH sensors, again we have to be careful, because these voltages, do you have to power the device to generate a voltage?
No.
Do you have to give a separate power supply? Piezoelectric gives a charge, right? And based on the capacitance, this could be piezo. This is a voltage, is a question, right? Because piezoelectric is essentially a charge that gets induced across a capacitance, which you can measure it as a voltage.
In the case of pH sensor, there is a transfer of ions across the membrane, which results in generation of a voltage.
Yes. Yeah, that is. Yeah, I don't want to comment on it because I myself am not an expert with that. Maybe it is right that pH sensors do give a voltage output. Yeah. Okay. So, sorry? Is it current or voltage? It's a voltage, yeah? Voltage output, yeah. Okay. So that's, let's put also thermocouple. And so on. So each of these sensors can give you different possible outputs, right? Now the question is, how good is a sensor? Let's pick one sensor. How good is it? How do you say that? You have hundreds of sensors, right? And now let's pick one of those, which could be any one of these: temperature sensor, it could be, light sensor, it could be gas sensor. How do you say some sensor is good or bad? How do you answer this question?
Repeatability.
No, but just from the sensing point of view. Huh? Resolution. Who determines the resolution? These are all characteristics, right? But I am talking of, you have a sensor. What is the first thing you care about it? Sensitivity, right? So basically you worry about its sensitivity. How good is it? Right? What does this sensitivity mean? Means how much of this signal you get for a corresponding change in whatever parameter it is trying to sense, right? So let's take some examples. Let's say if you take photodiodes, what is the input to the photodiode? Light of certain power. What is the output? Current. So output is a current, input is optical power, right? And it usually has, depends upon the photodiode and so on and so forth, it usually has something like 0.5 amps per watt. So if 1 watt of light is hitting, obviously this won't happen because the area of the photodiode is so small. For every watt of power that's hitting the photodiode, you get half an ampere of current at the output, right? In the case of, let's say, thermistors whose resistance changes with temperature, what is the approximate value? What is the input to a thermistor? Temperature, right? Ohms per degree centigrade or percentage, right? It could be, let's say, nominal value is 1 kilo ohm. 1 degree change in temperature could lead to, let's say, 5% change in its resistance. Okay, 1 kilo ohm becomes how much with 5%? 1.05, right? So something like 5% is, these are all, depends on the sensor. These are just nominal values, okay? These are just nominal values. So then there are other kinds, yeah, let's just take these two. So essentially for a certain input, you have a certain change in its response, right? And obviously you pick one which is maximizing your sensitivity, right? Not always the best choice, okay? One parameter we have ignored here is, what does sensitivity not account for? My question is the following. See, this is the input parameter to the sensor. This is the corresponding change in the output, right? A photodiode will give you, let's say, 0.5 amps per watt. It will give you 5% change in resistance per degree Celsius. And there are accelerometers, magnetic sensors which give you different resolutions, okay? Now the question is, this, how, let's say some sensor has this value, some other sensor has, let's say, this value. Obviously it looks like this one is better, correct, as far as the sensitivity is concerned. What does not this account for? What is the, so many other parameters are not accounted for here, right? So for example, what is the range of measurement of this optical power? Something may just saturate, something may not be sensitive to the wavelength that you care about, right? So just one number is not sufficient to quantify the performance of the sensor, right? Just saying this sensitivity is more than the other, therefore this is good, is not a right answer, Okay. So for example, APDs, we removed that. So this, there are avalanche photodiodes which have much higher sensitivity. Their operating principle is different. Okay. Almost like 100 times more than this. But then they saturate very quickly, right? So they are good for sensing very low light conditions, not for all applications, right? So therefore, the sensitivity is just one of the metrics for saying a sensor is good or not. Okay. So we said what is the possible output type, right? And what is the sensitivity of the sensor to those signals, right? What is one more parameter to consider? Range is another, sensitivity we talked about, output parameter we talked about. Anything else? Response time, but see, we have a parameter signal which you are trying to sense. There is a sensor which is giving this output, right? Now the output of this, so any waveform of a sensor has a certain amplitude and some frequency content, right? So basically you need to also know what is the signal type at its output. What do I mean by this, right? Output, right? So we need to see what is going into the input to the sensor first. Is it a low frequency, small changing signal, or is it a some kind of an RF signal like with kind of antennas, for example, or is it a pulse signal? Okay, this like heart rate, right? These are pulses every few seconds, correct? Even there are sensors like radiation detectors which are getting this radiation hitting it once every some time. Okay, all of these also are important to know what is the, is it a pulse signal or is it a band limited signal? Any example of band limited signal with finite bandwidth? Or band limited, or here it could be of two categories. One is low pass, the other is band pass. What do this mean? What is a sensor which has a low pass signal? Any example of it? Gas sensors, right? You don't have gas changing with, let's say, tens of kilohertz or once every 1 millisecond, right? It's a very low frequency signal which changes very slowly, right? So therefore this, so is the idea clear or no? What do I mean by, see, any signal can look like a low frequency signal like that, right? Or it could be pulses like this at some random times, right? Or it could be a single tone. Any example of a single tone signal? Beeps, yeah, but in anything at the higher frequency, slightly higher. Or AM receivers or FM receivers, right? So these are, you lock into that carrier, right? So these could be heart rate or something which is coming in periodic pulses. Low frequency signals, as I told you, for gas sensors and so on, you have low frequency. So basically the front end you build after the sensor, you need to know what is the input to the sensor, right? Without which that is not so trivial. Okay. All right. So that is one part, and we talked about the sensitivity. The next thing is, okay, so you have So we saw this already, right? So there is a sensor, you give a physical quantity to its input, some output is provided, and this is some electrical quantity, right? What is the perfect sensor? Correct. Yes. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. I'm talking of what is the perfect ideal sensor. Yeah. Let me before I draw. Works under all conditions. What conditions? Yeah, temperature, all that. Yeah. But then, ideally, what do you want? Somebody said it. Huh? Linear. Exactly. So, what does linear mean? Let's call this output y and this input is x. What is the linear relation between these two mean? So, y is some constant times x. Is this linear? No. Right? This is having a constant also is not linear. So, doubling the input doubles the output, right? Two additions in the input will also lead to additions at the output. Okay, that's the idea of linearity. So, if you plot this, how should this look? So, basically, yeah. So, it's some straight line that passes through the origin, right? And this has a slope of a. Correct? So, this is the most perfect. What is a actually with reference to previous sensitivity, right? So, for a change in input, how much change in the output? So, y by x, this is the perfect sensor. Whatever is the input quantity, you have a perfect linear output for that input. Now, is this clear? Okay. We know what an ideal sensor should look like. Is it look like a straight line? Okay. Now you can talk of, yeah.
Non-linear applications, we cannot use IoT.
What is a non-linear application? See, the point here I am trying to make is that when you are trying to sense something, you want an exact replica in a different domain without any issues. Okay? So, what do I mean by that? Let's say the temperature goes from 10 degrees to 20 degrees. Okay? Let's the output of the sensor go from 1 kilo ohm to 2 kilo ohm. Assume this is the case, right? What we don't want is when you go from 20 degrees to 30 degrees, output going from, ideally what do you want, 20 to 30, right? Or 2 kilo ohm to 3 kilo ohm. But it could happen that it goes from 2 to 2.5 or 3.5, right? So, this kind of linear mapping, if it is not there, then you are prone to making errors if you don't know how the sensor behaves, right? So, this is an ideal sensor. Now, the question is what makes a non-ideal sensor? So, just look at this curve and see all the ways it can go bad, that is all, right. Yeah, let us pick one at a time. The simplest change that you can make to that curve is that it is still a straight line, but then that straight line is not going through the origin, right. So, it goes somewhere else. okay, where my output is this, okay. Is this fine? So this is the problem of sensor offset. Okay, what does it mean?
There is some threshold value on
Threshold.
Built-in bias.
There is a, just looking at this, what can this lead to if you build a system with an offset?
there is some delay for zero.
Delay. Is there a delay? What are we saying here? Yeah, exactly. So even if there is no input, even if the input is 0, still there is an output. Okay, so this is the problem. So this is a common issue with a lot of sensors, particularly gas sensors. Almost all sensors, I mean, I don't have to even write them out, because almost every sensor has this problem. You pick all the sensors we wrote, right? Very rarely you have a sensor whose output is 0 when there is no input to the sensor. Okay, so this is the first problem, right? The second extension to this is the following, right? Okay, let's go with that and see something else later. This is the offset that changes with. Okay, so one is there is a fixed output without any input. Okay, now this offset, is it a constant always? No, right? Which means that this offset can change with time. Okay, so this problem of offset changing with time is a term that is called offset drift. Okay, so offset drift essentially means that if there is no input, there is still an output, and that output is not the same. Why is this a problem? If it was constant, what you could do? You can basically subtract it out, or that process is called calibration. Right? If you knew what it was, right, and then save it somewhere in memory in your circuit, and then say this output is some bug in the sensor, which I can simply subtract the output and make this curve back to here. You can simply subtract this output with a value of B, and you are back to perfect ideal output, right? But that is not the case. This output offset actually changes with time, right? And even if you save the value, yeah, in your system, let's say when you manufacture it, right, by the time you send it and somebody starts using it, that value has changed. And once that value has changed, right, you can subtract it, but then that's a wrong subtraction, right? And then it will give an error output which does not represent an ideal sensor. Is that clear? Okay, so offset drift is an important problem which even calibration cannot easily solve. Okay, so therefore what do? if the offset itself is changing, what do you do? Average? Yeah, checking the drift with time. So you basically not just do it once,
Periodic calibration.
you basically do periodically, right? So you basically do dynamic offset correction. That's the, or the other thing is dynamic calibration. Or dynamic offset correction, or you basically do it dynamically. You keep on measuring, don't give any input to the sensor, measure the offset, save it and correct it for some time. Okay, I mean this is usually done in a lot of these pressure meters in cylinders, right? They usually write the date on which it was even weight scales, right? So people in industries might have seen this thing. So every time a weight scale is calibrated and the date is noted down, right? And then you say when is the next calibration, after 5 months or 6 months or something. Between that time the weight scale will drift. Okay, the assumption is between these two times it won't drift so much that you make error in your measurement. The same thing applies to electronic calibration. So you measure it so often and correct it that within that time the offset that it adds is not significant. Is that clear? Okay, that is about offset.
How would you do a dynamic calibration?
You have to have a zero state input.
When the sensor is in situ, how would we achieve?
That's not easy.
That would not be feasible.
So with gas sensors they purge it with some inert gas, right? And then you have to measure it, save it and then redo it. Yeah. Okay. So the first error we talked about, again I'll write it here, offset, and the other thing is okay. So I kind of made a trick question here. Okay, why does even offset arise? What does zero output even mean for a resistor? See, let's take the example of a physical sensor which was a resistor. Okay, what does zero output of a resistor mean? Doesn't mean anything, right? Does it mean anything? Nominal value, exactly. But then how are you measuring that nominal value?
With some stated condition.
With some?
Stated condition.
No, my point is this. You are saying that with zero input, the output is zero. At least ideally it's correct. But then you have a resistor. What does resistor giving you an output zero mean? It doesn't mean anything, right? But then when you get a zero output in a resistor, it never happens, right? Only when you configure it as some sensing element, like a Wheatstone bridge. Have you come across Wheatstone bridge? Yeah. So in a Wheatstone bridge, what happens is that, let's say you basically have 4 resistors and apply, let's say 1 volt here, or let's say 2 volts. All of them have a resistor R, and one of them is our sensor. Okay? Yeah, let's take one of them is our sensor. All of them have a resistance R. What is the value here? 1 volt, right? Nominal value is 1 volt. Here, 1 volt. What is this difference? 0, right? So everything being perfect, right? This differential output here, V out, should be 0. So when you plot V out versus time, you should get an output 0, right? But no, it is unlikely that all the resistors in the circuit are exactly R. It can never happen. See, all of you might have a multimeter and a bank of resistors. Take any two 1 kilo ohm resistors and measure it. Never will they be the same, right? You can never achieve perfect match between any two of this, okay? And therefore, you have what is also called mismatch, right? This is what makes each of these slightly different. Let's say some small delta R1, some small delta R2, all of them are slightly different. Okay, all of them are slightly different, and once they are slightly different, what do you think will be this voltage? It will not be 1 volt anymore, right? This will be slightly different from 1 volt, and so will this be, and both will never increase or decrease the same way, right? So when you take the difference of these two, you will not get a zero output. So therefore, this output is, although zero nominally, in reality this will be something else, okay? And that something else is not constant with time, right? So even with zero input, this could be doing this, okay? This is a standard problem with sensors. This offset, which is not zero in output, and that value changing with time, okay? Is this clear? Offset is over, offset drift is over. Offset actually becomes because of mismatch. That's the first thing. Okay. Now what else? Look at that curve. How can that be wrong? First way we made it wrong is to move it up, right? How can we change that? Some kind of saturation. What does it mean? Yeah, it is not anymore a straight line, right? It could be something like this, okay? Why will this happen? The material used, yeah. So it kind of, let's say gas sensing material, gas is absorbing on top of this material, and it can only absorb so much gas, right? And beyond that point the material is saturated, you cannot put more of it, right? Like eating some food, right? Like jamun, for example. You cannot keep on eating. Maybe there are some people who can do it, but most of them tend to saturate, right? You can force feed a few more, but then they say enough, right? So I mean, that's a kind of that's an analogy, but what you see is that it saturates. Now why is this a problem? So now the question is, my output Y is no more this. What else is it? Some functions of x, right? Instead of this, it is some function of x. This function of x is some nonlinearity, right? x1 plus x2 square plus x3 or logarithmic e power, you add, I mean, have to depends on the sensor, but in the end this is some function of x. And why is this a problem? No, why is this a problem first of all?
Different values of input, I would get the same output.
Is that true? Is that true? No. Different values of input, you are getting different outputs.
When you saturate,
It's reflecting, right? Change in input is change in output. What is the problem? Huh? Sensitivity is changing, which means for the same change in input, that's the catch. For the same change in input, you have different changes in output, right? So if I change by the same amount here, let's say by the same amount here you will see between these two some smaller change compared to here. Okay, so the delta x is the same, but here you have delta y2 and this is delta y1. Okay, for the same change in input, you are seeing different changes in output. Okay, why is this? This is the term which is called non-linearity. Okay, sensor is no more linear. Okay, even then, what is the problem? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That won't be anymore a sensing itself, right? So what is point is that, let's say this becomes like that, right? Yeah, it has already saturated and your delta x is here, delta y is 0, then it's not even sensing it. But I am talking of the place where it is sensing. It is still sensing here. You are seeing a change in output for a change in input, but the change is not the same, right? Less or more depends on where you are operating, but then it's not the same. So this variation of sensitivity with the actual value of the input is called nonlinearity, and it is actually a problem, right? I mean, for example, temperature, simple example, 30 degrees to 31 degrees. Let's say the resistor changes by 1%. From, let's say, 50 to 51 degrees, it changes by 0.5%, right? If you don't know the sensor is nonlinear, what will you infer?
End up with the wrong value of the.
Wrong value of the. See, what you get is this value, right? What you infer is this. It's not the other way around, right? You are only measuring y with your electronic circuit. You have to then interpret what the temperature is, right? It's a reverse problem, and therefore, let's say here it was say 1 kilo ohm, right? And it changes to 1.1 kilo ohm. Okay. Now, if this was a perfect sensor, you would have assumed that this is the straight line, correct? Now, what will you say? You will say that the temperature changed from here to here, correct? But actually, what is the temperature changing in outside? It is something else, right? So, you are measuring this change, you are assuming the sensor is linear, and you are interpreting the temperature changes this one, whereas in reality it is something else. So this leads to erroneous measurements in erroneous interpretation of the actual physical parameter. Okay, this is a very tricky problem. How do you know? How do you correct for this? Yeah.
There are two ways to do this.
Yeah.
One is within the circuit, which is the processing circuit. Either you start introducing a feedback so that you fix the linearity, but that is provided the degree of saturation is clearly defined in loop. The second is because of the programmable solutions that are available. So you start building the same thing again. You know, in your program itself, you have the table and you fix it.
Calibration is one way,
yeah,
right?
so that's the other
so
way.
Basically, you store this. You say that if it changes from 1 to 1.1, it is not a straight line. I know this a priori by other previous measurements, and I will interpret it with this curve and not a straight curve, right? So calibration is one straightforward way to address this. So, non-linearity. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Anything else?
Repeatability of the sensor is also an issue, whether it's giving the same output at different times.
Repeatability is connected to this. Yeah. So same value you keep on changing, it keeps on drifting, right? See, offset drift is one aspect. There is also, okay, let's come to that itself. Huh? Sensitivity drift, correct. So what does that mean? This was our ideal sensor, right?
Slow changes.
Yeah, exactly. So this was when we actually built it, okay? But later on, when we send it out for testing or fabrication, the slope became this, correct? So this, let's say, was AX, this is something else, okay? What would this mean again? The sensitivity itself is changing with time, okay? It's no more a single slope that we thought it is, but rather this curve itself changes, the slope itself changes with time. And this A0 is the sensitivity, A0 changes with time, right? So therefore, this is also called sensitivity drift. See, if you open any sensor, data sheet of any sensor, you will see these words, okay? Take this as, an evening assignment, open up any sensor like a temperature sensor, gas sensor or something and see the data sheet. You will notice these words being used. What is the offset, what is its offset drift, what is its sensitivity drift and so on, okay? Is this clear? Okay. So the next thing is the following. How else can you make that curve different? How do you account for that? In that curve. See, you saw that curve, what did we do? We moved it up and down, that became offset. We moved it around that slope, that became sensitivity drift. We bent it, it became non-linearity.
It's also
Sir, when we are going from lower side to upper side, then the sensitivity is up to down.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, let's say you have this sensor, okay? And then let's say this is some IoT device and you put it in hot water or water, okay? This is water and this is the IoT device and you have your gas flame. Heating it. So the temperature of the water keeps on increasing, right? Now what do you see at the output? Initially there could be some offset, okay? Then what can you see? The temperature goes on increasing. The output of this sensor increases. There is non-linearity also, right? And this is in this direction. Okay, now you turn it off, right? Then the sensor may not go back in the same route, okay? It might come back in a different way, right? When this thing starts to cool, right? And then this could happen with other sensors also. Right? This is basically the problem of hysteresis. Why is this a problem? First of all, it adds non-linearity, right? It could be non-linear, right? Then what else? Hysteresis. How could this? So, what is the problem with this? What is the consequence of this? It has? Yeah, or what is the other consequence? Yeah. So again, this is just one loop, one cycle. Let's say you start here, you end there, come back here. Right? There is no guarantee that it will repeat in the same path. Right? The second time you do this, it could take a different path. Slightly different. It could come back like this. Right? So this could keep changing from cycle to cycle. Right? So you might not get two nice curves which are separated, but a band. Right? Band of possible changes. Right? So rather than this, you might actually see something like this. This is possible changes. It could take any path in this band. What is the problem or what is the consequence of this? No. That won't happen. See, it's still one curve. You are only measuring one point, like resistance of a resistor. It's just still one point. You cannot measure two resistance values in one resistor. Right? But it depends on what? On the path it took to come to that value. Right? So whether you went forward up or backward to come to that value, right, actually has an impact, which means that it has, what is the word? Memory. It has memory. It has memory of what it has experienced before. Right? If you experience IIT Bombay nice this time, then there is a chance that you will come back here next time. Right? So that's the hysteresis. So humans have a long hysteresis. You remember what happened 15 years ago, 20 years ago also. Correct? So that's also the case with sensors, that they actually remember what they were exposed to before. What does this mean? So let's take for example gas sensors. This is a good example because if the gas sensor is freshly fabricated and you then expose it to the gas that you want, it will show a very nice response. Okay? But then after a few days, when it has gotten exposed to and back and forth, now it does not respond to well enough. Okay? And for the same amount of change, your sensitivity is different. Then because it has already has some gas in it or some reactions have happened, its response has decreased. Okay? So this is the common problem, and this memory or hysteresis is yet another issue with sensors. Okay? Particularly with gas sensors, this is a very common problem that they. So what is generally done is to actually do some degassing, is what it's called. You remove you heat up the gas sensor or something like that so that whatever it has absorbed goes away. Okay? Anything else in that plot? Do you see any other problems?
Another thing which is called as backlash.
Backlash.
That means it will not start giving output
till it reaches certain input.
Threshold, yes.
So it may happen both sides.
Yeah, that could be the case. Like lasers, for example, you need to pump it with a certain current before it starts lasing, right? It's not like a straight linear. Yeah, that curve doesn't start at 0. It rather looks something like this, like that. Negative side also. Yeah. Anything else? If not for that curve, can you make a change to that curve?
Intermittent anomalous behavior where it's going okay and then in between for a range it screws up, then comes back.
Yeah, that usually is a bigger issue to solve, and that has to be solved. Yeah, that could be more than just the sensor itself. It could be the system problem. So any other, in this curve, what are we missing? There is only, y is only a function of x. Do you see a problem with that? No? Yes. So what we said was that y is only a function of x, right? Is this always the case? It can be. It can be. It can be not just x, but something else. It can be multiple of them. Okay? What does this mean? Any example for this? Yeah, so a gas sensor again, right? Or let's say even a photodiode, right? We said the output is some sensitivity times the optical power input, right? So the current of the photodiode is some constant, which is let's say 0.5 ampere watt times optical power input. This could be whatever light is hitting that photodiode. It is not just this, right? It could be the current can depend upon the change in temperature also, right? So one sensor can respond to ideally what you want, that sensor responds to exactly whatever it has to sense, nothing else, correct? But that will never happen in any sensor. Most sensors are sensitive to whatever you want it to sense, and they are also sensitive to something you don't want them to sense. Okay, this could be temperature, humidity, for gas sensors this could be some other gas. You make a carbon dioxide sensor, it will sense carbon dioxide also, and it will also sense a little bit of carbon monoxide. Now if you see let's say 1% change, that's what you measure. What you measure is only this y. Did that y occur because of x1 or x2? You don't know. Correct? Is the problem clear? The output depends on multiple variables, but what you measure is only one value, right? Somebody told you something. Did he tell it or somebody asked him to tell it? Right? So you don't know. In the end you heard something. That's the problem, right? So this is actually the problem of what is called cross sensitivity. Okay. So the cross sensitivity problem is again a common problem with sensors, that it measures something but it also measures something else, right? Obviously what you want to make sure is that you make your sensor good enough that it senses what you want to sense perfectly, right? and try to minimize what it senses other things as much as possible. Even that is not avoidable, it can never be made to 0, right? All these other factors, let's say B, C, D or whatever, can never be made to 0, it will always exist. Now what can you do to address it? At least for temperature, what can you do? Is the problem clear? So what can you do to solve this problem?
Temperature dependent range, for example.
Yeah, you can add one more sensor which actually measures the temperature. Now the output that you are getting is a combination of two factors, right? One is the change in, let's say, gas concentration and the change in temperature. But you measure the change in temperature with a different sensor and then calibrate out the effect of that temperature change on the gas sensor. Is that clear? So basically you, in these situations, the solution is to have multiple sensors which are sensing different parameters, not sensing the same thing. If you just have two sensors measuring the same thing, it doesn't improve anything, right? If it measures, both sensors measure the same gas, both are cross sensitive, there is nothing you achieve, right? One has to be measuring some other parameter and then you use this information to remove this effect, okay? Cross sensitivity. So any other, one more point that I have to make is about how fast does the sensor, see in this curve what is missing? Time. Time is missing, right? What does it mean? Immediately I present the sensor with an input, the output appears instantaneously. There is no question of delay or response time, okay? What does it mean is the following. Let's say you take some sensor and this is time, this is the sensor output Y, okay? Now you, let's say, for somehow, you know, using some laser or whatever, right, try to increase the temperature of that temperature sensor like this, okay? You suddenly heat it, suddenly cool it, something like this. Assume this is an ideal situation, never happens. What you see in reality is that no sensor can immediately respond to whatever it's exposed to, right? There is always some kind of finite time it takes to respond to that steady state. So this is the steady state output. Steady state output. It always takes some time, and then it always takes some time to come back down, okay? And sometimes there could be some delay also. This curve could, for whatever reason, shift to the left, to the right side. Okay, there could be some time. See, this is also a common problem, okay, that there is a finite response time. See, this you cannot easily solve, okay? At least all of these has some solutions, right? But not the response time. You have to just use a better sensor, okay? Which is probably made with a different technology or implemented with, you know, which consumes more power, whatever it is. But it cannot, there's no simple solution to increase the speed. You just have to use a different sensor or burn more power, okay? So these are all, not just, these are some of the problems that actually a sensor faces, okay? Now why are we spending so much time on sensors when the course is on IoT? So this is actually what is facing the environment, right? Any errors that are introduced here, right, there is no solution. Everything later is based on this, right. So if you make errors in actually acquiring the signal, right, if you make a light sensor which actually simply saturates for tube light and you try to put it outside, it's giving you 0, 0, 0 as the output, or 1, 1, 1, whatever it is. So there is no point of that device, right. So the choice of the sensors, the range of these measurements, the resolution with which it measures, all of these are important considerations for any sensor system, need not be just for IoTs. And particularly for IoTs, they actually incorporate sensor as their first interface to the outside world. And if there is something wrong when you acquire the signal itself, then you can digitize it, you can filter it, you can transmit it 3 gigahertz, 4 gigahertz, 1 gigahertz, you can burn how much ever power, use 3 volt battery, 5 volt battery, nothing helps, okay, because the sensor itself is not giving you the right information, right. So therefore, you know, if we do good, spend lot of time making the interface to the real world neat, and if it can, the digital data that comes out of it is a good representation of the real world, then everything you do later will also be good, right. It's like recording a song with a bad system and then trying to play it in a concert. Obviously it's useless because the recording itself is wrong, right. You can have how much ever big speakers you want, but if the recording is not good, there is no point of those speakers, right. So that's the whole idea of why I took this topic. You know, this is just a starter. There are definitely much more to this, and then the signal processing and the digitization is a topic in itself, and that cannot be covered in this even 1 week, okay. So therefore, you know, the point of this this 3 hours was to give you kind of a flavor of how deep one can go in any of these blocks inside IoT, okay. So it's no more cool to assemble blocks to build IoT. People have done it, wherever there is money they are doing it, okay. So now one has to make this better than what is available, and that requires more time to be spent to understand these, right. So I urge you, all of you, particularly faculty who will be, you know, working with some of the students, that assembling blocks is no more something, it kind of teaches you something, but that's not necessarily what will go forward, right. We need to build like systems which are much more sophisticated, and to do that we need to go much deeper into understanding these blocks, right. And that's, with that I'll open up for any questions for 5 minutes.